What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Schnick Talk Sports. We are back on the NBA recap series. This is week 2, but we only have around 12 to 13 games left in the regular season. And let's get right into it. Last week we talked about the summary of kind of all 18 teams that are really in the playoff mix. By 18, I mean the top 8 in the West and the top 10 in the East. And now we're just going to kind of go over some of the more important games of the last week. And we'll just go through all of those top teams, talk about how they did, and let's just get started. So starting off with the Thunder, no real news here. They continued on for their 12-game win streak, but just kind of beating up on teams that didn't really have a chance with them. Jalen Williams is back. He played in their last game after missing 26 of the previous 28 due to the hamstring injury. So really good news for the Thunder to get him back this early. They still have, like I said, about 12 games to get him back accustomed to the lineup. Not that it should be that hard, but just kind of get his legs back under him again. And, he scored 18 points in his debut, if you want to call it that. So I think he's going to be fine. I think the Thunder are going to be fine, and they are still the team to beat in the West. As I said, no notable games here, but they do play the Celtics tomorrow night. So I'll talk about that in the next recap on how that goes, and we'll see who can rise to the top and show that they're ready for that next step. Next up, we got the Spurs, and this is a good one because in the summary that I had last week, I talked about not knowing what the Spurs were going to do in late-game situations, especially against good teams, and even more especially when it comes to the playoffs. They were down 10 points with 5 minutes to go against the Suns, who are the 7th seed right now. They are going to make the playoffs, and the Spurs made a dominant comeback. They were led by De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama. Are the Suns the best team in the league? No, but they have Devin Booker. They have guys that, have played big-time basketball before, and they are playing well recently, but the Spurs were able to make that comeback. And De'Aaron Fox kind of answered my question of last week. I really didn't know who they were going to go to, and De'Aaron Fox said, I'm the guy. Give me the ball. I'm going to go to work. He was hitting threes. He was getting to the rack, and he was giving the ball off to Wemby, who hit his own couple of shots, including the game winner in that one. So a really cool back and forth between them, and I'm interested to see if that maintains in the tougher games throughout the rest of the regular season and into the postseason. Up next, we got the Lakers. Unfortunately, their 9-game win streak did come to a close, but in that 9th game, they played against the Magic, and man, I don't work for the NBA. I'm not in the NBA. I can say this without being fined. That was the worst refereed game I've seen since the Lakers played the Celtics, where the ref was fired because he was rooting for the Celtics. I mean, what are we doing here? I saw that the post-game report showed that LeBron wasn't fouled, and it was a correct no call at the end of the game. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Paolo Banchero went up with 2 arms and swiped down on LeBron, never touched the ball, completely hit the ball out of his hands by slapping the absolute mess out of his arms, and no call. And it wasn't just one play. There were several plays throughout the game. I mean, J.J. Redick even went up to the ref furious after 3 minutes into the game because they had already missed 3 or 4 calls, including one that was challenged and the Lakers lost, where Wendell Carter Jr. literally bulldozed Austin Reeves. Austin Reeves took one slide on defense off the ball, mind you, and Wendell Carter put his elbow up and shoved him to the ground, and Lakers challenged it because they called a foul on Austin Reeves, by the way. Lakers challenged it. No, it was the right call. Unbelievable. Like, genuinely, I have no idea what happened, but Lakers still prevailed. They got a wide open shot for Luke Kennard to win the game. People are saying to me, how is Luke Kennard getting open for 3 at the end of the game? Well, you got Luka, LeBron, and Austin Reeves, so you really got to pick your poison. You know what I mean? He set a screen for one of them. I don't even remember who, but, he slipped off the screen into his favorite spot on the left wing and then splash. And I can't help but have thought that he was going to miss because I've come so accustomed to that over the past 10 years as a Laker fan of us missing wide open shots, especially in big time moments like that. Not Luke Kennard. That's my Blue Devil, baby. Let's go. But then we get to the Pistons game. I mean, just ugly, to be real. I mean, Luka had 30 again. He extended his streak. I don't know exactly what it was, maybe 10 games in a row or something. But he didn't look great. He shot very poorly from three. And it was just not the Lakers' best team basketball. And they were down by 16 at one point, late in the third quarter, I believe, and they were able to storm all the way back. You know, they were going back and forth right at the end in Detroit, and Dennis Jenkins put us away. If you don't know who he is, I don't blame you. He averages 9 points per game on the season, but now that Cade Cunningham is out with that collapsed lung, he's apparently the guy, because he had 30 points against us, maybe 32 with the game winner, but he, just drove to the right on Austin, took a little step back, and just cashed it over Austin. It was a really great shot. But the Lakers still had their opportunities. We came down the floor. Luka forced up a mid-range fadeaway over Kevin Huerter. I just thought it was a bad shot. I mean, he has the size mismatch. He should have just bullied him to the paint and gotten the layup, but he didn't. He went for the fade, which, he's Luka. He can hit anything, and unfortunately he missed that one. And we fouled, down 3 now, and then we drop a play, and miscommunication off the inbound. It bounces off Maxi Kleber, and Luka, kind of scrambles to get it. He's, collapsed by the defense and then just chucks up a prayer from way beyond the arc, and he airballed. So, unfortunate way to lose, but I can't help but think that the Pistons just absolutely throttle the Lakers in that game if Cade Cunningham's playing. I mean, the only reason, in my opinion, that the Lakers were able to get back late in that game is because the Pistons really had no direction on offense. They were really just kind of moving the ball as best they could, but the Lakers were, stopping the passing lanes, and they were closing out on everything. They were doing their job. And, Cade Cunningham would very seamlessly be able to get in there and, just get to the rack, get somebody open, but that didn't happen, and the Lakers still lost as a result. Up next, we got the Timberwolves, and this is interesting because they just beat the Celtics by 10 without Anthony Edwards. I mean, I don't know how, I don't know why, but they have been playing really well even without Ant, and beating the Celtics without your best player is not only phenomenal, but when you take into account that Julius Randle honestly played horrible on offense, he shot just 3 for 14, and there may have been 5 or 6 guys that scored more than him on his own team. The fact that they were able to come out of there with a win is pretty substantial, and that says a lot for their team going into the playoffs, especially when Ant is back. And honestly, at this point, I don't feel like we should be surprised. They've made the conference finals back-to-back years, and it doesn't really matter what seed they are. They plan to do it again, and so when Ant comes back, they're going to continue to be a tough out in the playoffs, and we'll see how they keep managing without him for now. As for the Celtics, they shot the ball very, very poorly in this game. I mean, both teams did, for that matter, but the Celtics kind of continue to prove what they have over the past couple of years, where under Joe Mazzulla, if they don't shoot the 3 well, they don't play well. I mean, they shoot so many and they rely on it so heavily that when it's not falling, they can, fall behind rather quickly. And their defense is very good, and, they get a lot of transition points because of their defense. But against a team like Minnesota, who, plays even better defense, you got to hit the open ones, and simply put, they weren't doing that. I don't know if the identity crisis is still hitting them with Jason Tatum being back in the lineup now, but they got to figure it out before the playoffs come. And as I said, they play the Thunder tomorrow night, so that should be an interesting one to see where their direction is going. Next, we got the Rockets, and this was cool because Kevin Durant surpassed Michael Jordan for 5th all-time on the NBA leading scorers list. Really crazy, just as a 24-year-old, I am, watching these guys for 10 to 15 years and seeing them, hit basically the end of their careers and surpass these absolute legends like Jordan, and LeBron's obviously surpassed everyone. It's just crazy to see, and it was almost ruined in the game against the Heat. I mean, he put up a shot that is not abnormal for KD, kind of similar to Luka, just a contested fadeaway mid-range shot from the elbow and just didn't fall. But Amen Thompson came to save the day, got the putback, and won it for them at the buzzer. And Amen Thompson might just be the X factor to this team. He had 18 rebounds in this game. 18. He's a point guard. Well, kind of a point guard. He's playing point guard. It's crazy. I mean, he has been really good for them this season, and I'll be honest, I was sleeping. I have only really noticed how incredibly athletic both he and his brother Asar are, and how, phenomenal they are defensively. But I did not give him enough credit at the beginning of the year for, being the playmaker that he's kind of turned out to be, and really just kind of being a stabilizer for this offense. Obviously, this offense doesn't, rely on him. They have Kevin Durant, they have Alperen Şengün, they have Jabari Smith when he's hot. But, if he can supply some of the easy ones and keep, playing a role, out of the dunker spot, or just moving the ball whenever he can, he makes a really big impact on this team. As for the Heat, they are looking scary even though they lost this game. Bam continues to play some of the best basketball of his career. He had 32 points and 21 rebounds in this game. And, now that Tyler Hero is back and healthy, and although they are still trying to figure out this situation with Norman Powell, which is weird in my opinion, but having all those guys along with Andrew Wiggins, this team is going to be a tough out, just like they are every year. Whether they're in the play-in or not, they are not going to be a team that teams will be looking to hunt as far as a matchup goes. So I would watch out for them regardless of where they end up, because they are the play-in gods like they have been every year. So expect them to be in the playoffs after the play-in tournament. Next, we got the Nuggets. They got a very, very good comeback win against Toronto. The Raptors were up by 9 going into the fourth quarter, and they did simply what they do best, which is choke a fourth quarter lead. It's frustrating, man. As a guy that covers the Raptors, it's really hard to watch this team fail game in and game out when it comes to the fourth quarter. They just have no direction. I mean, Brandon Ingram is, their guy offensively. RJ Barrett has also kind of been their guy recently because of how well he's played over the past month or so. But there's no movement, there's no reliability, there's no consistency. It's just let one guy, dribble around and see if he can do something, and if he can't, then he'll pass it, and then it's the next guy's turn. It's so boring to watch, and it simply doesn't work. And it really blows my mind that we are, 70 games into the season and they still haven't figured out. It's a recipe for disaster going into the playoffs. I don't see it changing at this point. And the answer is not Colin Murray-Boyles, although he is very much needed, and he just came back in the game against the Jazz, which is huge for them. He's not going to be the one in closing lineups, in my opinion, because you need Jakob Poeltl's, offense and rebounding, especially when the team is struggling so much at scoring the ball. So we'll see what they end up doing. I don't know if Darko Rajakovic is saving some sort of, end of game plan for the postseason, but let's just hope at this point for them. But back to the Nuggets. They played really well. They just continue to prove that, again, it doesn't matter what seed they are. They have the championship DNA. They have the best player in the world in Nikola Jokic. It's going to be tough to beat them nonstop, especially now that Peyton Watson is back too. Seems that everybody in the NBA is kind of getting healthy all at the right time outside of, Cade and Ant. But it's cool to see. I don't like the Nuggets for how, they beat down the Lakers several years, but it's cool to see how well they're doing and how they're all kind of bringing it back together with Aaron Gordon and Peyton Watson both being healthy now. And that's not a team that I want the Lakers to match up with in the playoffs. I'll just keep it at that. Moving over to the Eastern Conference, we already talked a little bit about the Pistons and the Celtics. The Knicks and Cavs didn't really play anybody. They, won all their past 3 or 4 games against poor teams, and that's kind of that. We'll see how they continue to end the season. Obviously, the Cavs still have, work to do, simply put, with James Harden and Donovan Mitchell. I'm really interested to see how they mesh in the playoffs and where the ball dominance goes to. I still want to see James Harden be the third option behind Evan Mobley as well, because, he has the capabilities of being a superstar in this league. And, at this point, you have to give the keys to him and Donovan rather than, a 37-year-old 11-time All-Star. As for the Knicks, it's kind of been ugly to watch them as well. Although they've been winning, it's still just not a lot of offensive production outside of Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, obviously they're always going to be one of the better defensive teams in the league, but OG Anunoby is kind of hot and cold. Mikal Bridges is very cold, and Josh Hart is solid for what he gives you as a role player. But they're going to need more in the playoffs. Teams are going to hone in on Jalen Brunson, on Karl Anthony Towns, and they're going to need other guys to step up. And at this point, I feel like it's going to be OG Anunoby that will be the guy to step up. I just don't know that I have faith in Mikal Bridges to, suddenly find his shot again. And, as for Josh Hart, I do have faith in him. He's proven that he is a winning player. He's done it in the playoffs for the past couple of years. So they're still going to be, great, and I don't expect them to lose in the first round or anything like that. But if they happen to be matched up with Boston in the second round, it's going to be tough. So we'll see how they continue to end the regular season. Getting to the Atlanta Hawks, they unfortunately had their crazy win streak disrupted by the Houston Rockets. The Rockets kind of just dismantled them, if we're being honest. Jabari Smith had 23 points, and, anytime he's scoring 20 or more, the Rockets seem to be very successful. And, the Hawks didn't even really play a bad game, honestly. Looking at their shooting percentages in that game, nobody shot the ball poorly in the starting lineup. It was just they couldn't keep up with the Rockets. I mean, they were pouring it on, and, the Hawks just couldn't keep up. So I think it's not a big deal for them. Moving forward, they've gotten a win or two after that already. So, they're going to continue to keep pushing. They are down to the 6th seed now. So we'll see if they continue to push their way all the way out of the play-in now that Trae Young is gone. And this is a fun team to watch, so I'm excited to see them in the postseason. One thing about the Hawks that the Rockets were able to point out was their lack of rebounding really hurts them, as for most teams in this league. The Rockets out-rebounded them by 13, which, is typical, honestly. They are the best rebounding team in the league. And they also shot the 3 ball really well. And, the Hawks usually do a great job of shooting threes as well. Depending on, who's hot that night, whether it's Nickeil Alexander-Walker, CJ McCollum, and Jalen Johnson. But they got shooters off the bench as well, but simply put, they just couldn't keep up with the Rockets. Next, we got the Philadelphia 76ers. It's crazy that they keep winning. They did just lose to the Thunder, but they keep winning. They've been playing really well without Tyrese Maxey, without Joel Embiid, without Kelly Oubre Jr., and even in the loss to the Thunder, VJ Edgecombe is going crazy. I mean, he had 35 points against the NBA's best defense. He's a rookie, man. He's not supposed to be going off like this, and it's really interesting to see how his role is going to regress once Maxey and Embiid are back in the lineup. He's shown throughout the season that when they're not in the lineup, he can ball, and when they are, he can take the back seat like he, has to. But it's really good to see his character continue to develop, but also, at what point do you just start giving him the ball as much as these other guys? Because he's hooping. And, in games like against the Thunder, he's obviously the number one option. I mean, no offense, but they don't have very much else in the starting lineup to give them a real spark, and he's just taking the ball and going with it. So putting him as the third option on this team, I mean, he could take this Sixers team very far if they get back to being healthy. On to the Orlando Magic. They are going through it. They're on a 5-game losing streak. They just lost to the Pacers. The Pacers were on a 16-game losing streak, and the Magic lost to them. Paolo Banchero had 39 points, and they lost to the Pacers. It's rough, man. It's not going well, and the easiest thing to point to would be that Franz Wagner is still out with that ankle injury, but Tristan da Silva is playing well. I mean, he's really fulfilling the role that he needs to. Is he Franz Wagner? No. Franz is capable of being an all-star level scorer, and Tristan da Silva is definitely more of a role player, but he's giving you 20 points when the team really needs it, and he's complementing Paolo and Desmond Bane pretty well. So he's obviously not the problem, but the defense is for this team. I mean, they're kind of just letting teams get whatever they want, especially in the interior, and it's not working for them. They got to figure something out. They got to increase their physicality. Paolo's been great on offense. He's doing what, I've been preaching, which is take it to the rack, stop settling for jump shots, use your physicality on offense. But he's succeeding, he's performing well, and the Magic aren't. They really got to be able to figure it out and really just push forward, get some wins going into the postseason. It looks like they probably will fall into the play-in unless they continue to keep winning. So we'll see how it plays out for them. Finally, we got the Charlotte Hornets. They've been balling. Like I said in the summary recap last week, they are on fire, and one of the most sleeper transactions, acquisitions, whatever you want to call it from this season is Coby White to the Charlotte Hornets team. He was not his best with the Bulls this year. I mean, he's shown that, he can be a solid point guard. Is he a number one option? No, of course not. But he can score at will from time to time. And now that he's on the bench for this Hornets team, I mean, he's popping off. The Hornets destroyed the Magic, and he had 27 points off the bench. This team is absolutely rolling. They might just have the best offense in the NBA, led by LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, and Con Knippel. And, having such a fun and exciting bench unit in Coby White, Josh Green, Zion James, and Ryan Kalkbrenner, this team is really fun, man, and I'm excited. I've been rooting for the Hornets forever because they continue to draft Duke guys every year, whether it was Vernon Carey Jr., Mark Williams, now we got Con and Zion. So I love the Hornets. I'm a big LaMelo fan too because he's my class, so I want to see these guys succeed, and it looks like they're going to do that. So hopefully they continue to rise. It looked like they were absolutely dead in the water to stay in the 10th seed. But, I mean, they're climbing. They keep winning. These other teams keep losing. They actually have a chance to make it out of the bottom play-in game and, potentially even rise into the top 6 seeds with how they're playing. So even if they're not able to do that, they are going to be tough to beat in the play-in tournament. And I would love to see them get into the playoffs, be matched up with the Detroit Pistons, because that would be an interesting series for me. As for the upcoming games in the NBA, we got the Magic and the Cavs coming up tonight, as well as the Nuggets and the Suns. The Magic need to get a win, and the Cavs are not going to be an easy team to beat, especially coming off a 5-game losing streak for the Magic, but they really need to just continue to push the pace and get into the paint. Jared Allen is one of the best rim protectors in the league, and Evan Mobley's right there with him. So it's not going to be easy. They need to hit their shots on the outside as well to have a chance to stay with this Cavs team. But if they lose, they're going to keep dropping. So they really need to, establish something on offense without Franz Wagner. As for the Nuggets and Suns, I'm interested to see when Dillon Brooks finally does come back from that fractured hand, but the Nuggets need this game to stay in the top 6 seeds and, really just continue to push up back towards the 4th seed. Then the Rockets and the Timberwolves are all fighting hard for that home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs, and, the Lakers are just barely ahead of those 3, so it's going to be an interesting end for all 4 of those teams, and the Suns are right behind the Nuggets. They might not be able to get out of the play-in tournament, but they definitely do not want to drop down into 9, and they just want to continue to build momentum finishing this season. Tomorrow we got a big slate of games. The Cavs have a back-to-back. They'll be playing the Heat, and the Heat are going to look to capitalize on a team that is coming off of the second night of a back-to-back, but they need to continue to win games and just try to get out of the play-in at this point. Obviously, like I said, they are the GOAT of play-in teams, but just keep grinding, keep figuring out what the solution is for the Norman Powell situation. I mean, I feel like you shouldn't be having an all-star coming off the bench, but maybe they'll figure that out against the Cavs or, in some of the games after that. But really just it'll be interesting to see how Bam plays against Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, if he can continue to dominate like he has or if he gets stifled by their athleticism and physicality. The Hawks and the Pistons will be playing tomorrow, and I'm curious to see who's guarding Jalen Johnson because he's been one of the best forwards in the league this year, and simply put, I don't think you can put Tobias Harris on him. I mean, I believe they started Duncan Robinson against the Lakers, and you're obviously not putting him on Jalen Johnson. He's, too dynamic for Jalen Duren to be out on the perimeter guarding him. So I'm interested to see how he performs against this really good Pistons defense, but I still think he's going to go off, and I think Nickeil Alexander-Walker will capitalize on the Pistons not having Cade Cunningham. So that should be an interesting one, and don't be surprised if the Hawks win that game. Moving forward, we got the Thunder and Celtics, which I already talked about. It's going to be a really intense, tight battle. I do think the Thunder are going to win that just because of how good they've been all year, but it'll be interesting to see both Jalen Williams and Jason Tatum still trying to find their grooves against one of the best teams in the NBA. Jason Tatum didn't play against the Thunder last time, although he was back. People had speculation that he didn't want to play because of the physicality of the Thunder, specifically Lou Dort, who has kind of gotten a reputation for being a dirty player. He's made a lot of questionable moves on players rather than the basketball that have led to injuries, so it was probably smart that he didn't play, and we'll see how he lines up with them this time. The final two interesting games, we have the Rockets and the Timberwolves. We'll see how the Timberwolves continue to score without Anthony Edwards. The Rockets, again, have one of the better defenses in the league, and the Timberwolves are also a good rebounding team, so it'll be interesting to see how they match up in that aspect, but I'm very excited to see Jaden McDaniels lined up with Kevin Durant. It's a fun matchup there. They're both tall and long, and they kind of cancel each other out in an essence, although I don't want to disrespect Kevin Durant in that regard because he is a legend. But we'll see how Amen Thompson can continue to be effective both on offense and defense. He'll be guarding Ayo Dosunmu, if I had to guess, being that Ant is out. But the other big matchup will be Alperen Şengün and Rudy Gobert. Obviously, Rudy Gobert has gotten a ton of slack over the past several years for not being as good of a defender as, the stats say or the analysts say. He is a very, very good defender, and although he may not be the best, isolation defender, he is maybe the best help defender of all time. And, Wemby might take that pretty soon, but the Timberwolves defense and the Jazz defense before that, they were and are centered around Rudy Gobert. He is the anchor of the defense. Everything runs through him on that side of the basketball. And being that the offense is really run through Alperen Şengün for the Rockets, I'm really curious to see how they match up with each other and whether Rudy will be forcing Alperen to be moving the ball more, or if Alperen's going to try and take that matchup personally and just get through him and score at will. Finally, we got the Clippers and the Raptors. This is a big one for the Raptors. They just got to win off the Jazz, but who cares? They lost to the Nuggets, to the Suns after getting a 3-game winning streak, and this is their chance to get back in rhythm. Their injuries are kind of all over the place at this point. They just lost Brandon Ingram to a heel injury. Emmanuel Quickley was also out due to a foot injury, I believe. But Colin Murray-Boyles came back in that game. They just signed Markelle Fultz to a 10-day contract because of Jamal Shedd's poor play, simply put. I believe he's had the worst effective field goal percentage in the NBA this season. So Markelle can provide a little bit of a spark on offense, and we'll see how he continues to progress with this team throughout this 10-day contract. But the Raptors just need to get everybody healthy and establish the rhythm that they need. And it's not going to be easy against Kawhi and the Clippers. I mean, the Raptors have two of the best defenders in the NBA in Scottie Barnes and Colin Murray-Boyle. So, hopefully they can take turns on Kawhi, just trying to limit him as much as they can and force the other guys to beat them. But Darius Garland and Benedict Mathurin are no slouch. They need to be taken seriously, and this Clippers team is still playing pretty well. So we'll see if the Raptors can, stifle their offense and just get a big win going into the final 10 or 11 games of the season. And that's going to do it. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoy this series. I'm going to continue to be putting up these recaps every week. I'm trying to, watch as many games as I can. Obviously, I'm in Denmark. For those of you that don't know, I'm 8 hours ahead of the West Coast, and after this weekend, I'll be 9 hours because our daylight savings hasn't happened yet. But just trying to watch as much as I can. I do all the research I can to keep you guys updated and, just kind of let you guys know who I think you should be watching, because there's a lot of great basketball going on, and because there's such tension in both the West and the Eastern Conference standings, this is the best time to be watching basketball, even though March Madness is really hot right now. But subscribe if you're new, leave a like, and leave a comment on if you want to see anything else, or if there's another team that you want to see covered. I'd be happy to talk more about the NBA like I always do, and we'll catch you in the next one.